how dare you not wear a mask? Like, this is the rule. This is the legal rule. How dare you? Because I want to breathe. It's my God-given right to breathe, and I don't have to put something on. My rights as an American don't end where yours begin. It is my personal belief that Gavin Newsom has been installed. Oh, I wish this shooter wouldn't have missed. Better luck next time. Why didn't he take more lessons? You bring order to the chaos, but you create the chaos so that you can be the hero who brings the order. Well, we really need like an audible way, some way that they can hear the information, because, many of them cannot read or write.
She said that?
She said that from the dais, like in a meeting one night. Marxists want to do three things. They want to go after religion, they want to go after family, and they want to go after property. Europe and Canada became the testing grounds for, will this really work? At the end of it, the goal is communism. So you're saying, oh, she could be your next president. Well, not on my watch is how I see it. Like, not on my stinking watch.
Simone Alex. Simone is an actor, writer, and producer who has worked in the film and entertainment industry for 30 years. After starring in commercials, television series, feature and short films, music videos, corporate, industrial, print ads for magazines, billboards, and the web, she moved into the role of producer. She started as SAG after actress in front of the camera, then moved into writing, producing, and directing. Her credits include Boston Legal, Unsolved Mysteries, NCIS, Transformers 3, as well as numerous commercials, lifestyle shows, and music videos. In addition to her entertainment career, she has traveled as a national and an international speaker as the host of an event for young girls focusing on teaching about positive body image and self-esteem while sharing her personal story of overcoming trauma. Her memoir called Rugged Girl, A Story of Self-Destruction and the Journey to Freedom was published in 2020. Rugged Girl is the true story of a girl who became a woman in the face of trauma. It's a book about overcoming self-destructive behavior and the shame that attaches to it. For years, Simone battled against depression, addiction, and an eating disorder. She shares about the depths of her darkness and her struggle to find her way to the light. This is a book for anyone who has experienced or knows someone who has endured sexual assault, alcohol or drug addiction, depression or anxiety. Simone offers tools for recovery and the steps she took towards freedom. After 10 years of working in Hollywood, Simone found Jesus and stepped away from the movie industry. Sometime later, she did a comeback to Los Angeles and entertainment, by this time with a purpose: help spread the word of Jesus Christ through her films. Simone's most important produced picture so far is highly appreciated A Letter to the American Church, a movie that is based on Eric Metaxas' eponymous book. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Paulo. I appreciate it.
Was that correct?
It was amazing. It was more than I thought you knew.
Oh, really? I did my research.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So my first question is always the same. So obviously I'm a foreigner. I'm an immigrant. I'm from Lithuania. That's a very small country, former USSR. We're right next to the Russia, right? Mm-hmm. Northeast of Europe. Mm-hmm. What do you think the US has the influence to the whole world? How big the influence is?
I think that for years it has been the most influential culturally, especially through Hollywood and media. I mean, I think that's the thing, is that that's how powerful Hollywood and media are, is that it goes across the world. And so our ideas, our values, our lack of values as of late, in my opinion, has been stretching across the world. And, for better or worse, I lived in Europe for a season when I was 10, and then for another season in my 20s, and also went to drama school in London, lived there for a year. And there were many times that I was ashamed to be American.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was raised in a non-patriotic family. They were very liberal, and I think there was this. And when I say for better and worse, because obviously I can say, oh yeah, rah rah, sis boom ba, Top Gun, and all of these things, but I think that the impression, at least from what I understood in the 80s is that, we were very like cocky and, boisterous and prideful and all of these things. And, I didn't want to be any of that. I just kind of wanted to blend in. But I think that, again, for better and for worse, America has been the most influential country in probably the history of civilization, apart from the Roman Empire. And yeah, so that's my opinion. And I think that there are other influential powers. I mean, obviously, China, Russia, and some of the larger superpowers are sort of rising up, but definitely not making impact the way
I would say not even close, because I'm 36. I remember myself being a small kid, and I was watching all the Hollywood movies. I was listening to the music from the US, and this is happening right now as well. Mm-hmm. So the reason I'm asking this question is because everything that you do here in the US, the Europe just copies, but in a 3 to 5 years period. That's it. So if you fail big here, Europe is about to do the same in 5 years, maybe 3 years, maybe 2 years, because of the internet, because of Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and all those social medias. Mm-hmm. So you have been working in Hollywood for many years. Mm-hmm. How woke is Hollywood really is, and people don't even understand that?
Well, when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't that woke. I mean, it was still very... I remember these really, really, really sweet movies like Pretty in Pink and, Breakfast Club and just all these really just feel good, like, American teenager movies, and just some of the more, like Chariots of Fire won multiple Oscars, and just all of these sort of great. Star Wars, of course, was super impactful, the 70s and the 80s. And so you look back, I mean, my husband and I find ourselves looking back and wanting to watch the old stuff because there's not any new stuff that is, that's not woke. And so I would say just in the trajectory of my career over the last 30 years, it's probably not been until the last, I want to say, 10 to 20 years that it's gotten really woke.
20 years?
Yeah, and I would say, too, because it's 2024, so I am seeing the parallel between Obama coming in 2008 and probably the acceleration at that point, which is, all the things with gay marriage. And I remember the advent of Ellen DeGeneres and her coming out on her show, which was sometime in the 2000s. So if you could see these markers, and then Modern Family, the show Modern Family, which had lots of, and it was really, it's funny, like interesting, but that show was funny. But it was so funny that you were okay with just, the gay couple and the this and that and the other.
I just watched a few episodes.
What's that? You just watched a few. It's massive, and it's really, massive success. I mean, my husband was on that show for like 7 years, and he loved working on it. It was super funny, well written, great acting. But I think it was this slow roll of woke ideology. And I dare say, so, we're Christians. And so not everything has to be like perfect gospel, biblical oriented, because that's not life. I mean, we want to tell life stories, but sort of this slow introduction to accepting all of these alternative lifestyles and alternative ideas that we just didn't grow up in this country in. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, as I had mentioned, and that was just, I had a relatively large graduating class from high school, and I didn't know anyone who was gay. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing. I'm sure there were some people who hadn't come out, but now in a high school, like, I think it's the statistic, and this could be a low statistic, but it's like 1 out of 4 is either gay or transgender. super high.
And they're saying that you can be born as a gay, right? So there are no genes. There are no gay genes.
Right.
So that means that's a religion that you follow.
Which I have very strong ideas about. But in Hollywood in particular, it was definitely in the last 10 to 20 years, probably more solidly 15, which would align us with the introduction of Obama years.
Modern Family is Ed O'Neill, right? With Sofia Vergara? Mm-hmm. That's the movie? Mm-hmm. So Ed O'Neill...
TV show.
Yeah, TV show. So he was in Married with Children.
Yeah.
So that was a domino effect. They were preparing for this for decades now. So Married with Children was, I want to say, 40 to 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And let's take a look at this TV show. A dad who is an idiot.
Yeah.
And the wisest is the woman, which the relationship is very strange.
Right.
They don't love each other, but they kind of do. Mm-hmm. Children don't love him as well. They don't listen to him. Mm-hmm. Everything that the women want, the daughter and the wife, is just the money. Mm-hmm. The son is an idiot who is obsessed with sex. Mm-hmm. So that was the 80s. That was just a preparation.
Yeah, and in Modern Family, you see the same dynamic with the two lead couplets, Claire, and I can't remember the husband's name right now, but he was also a bumbling dad. And she was the smart one. But it's a slow, I mean, if I dialed back to the days when I was watching it or, it was all the rage, I wasn't really thinking about it because it was so funny and it was so digestible. The other one too is the one with Deborah Messing. Will and Grace. Will and Grace was obviously Grace lived with Will, who was gay, and then they had their gay neighbor Jack. And so this was one too that nobody was very. It was just accepted. It was just accepted, and so it got really, the heat got really turned up in the woke. I would say since 2020. I mean, really turned up, just 2016 to 2020 and then beyond. It's become unbearable where they cast a black woman as Anne Boleyn, and the advent of diversity, equity and inclusion policies, DEI, and which we can get into later, the ideology behind that. And it was, which, I mean, really, if you have two brain cells to rub together, you're going to go, okay, and if you know who Anne Boleyn is, you're going to be like, Anne Boleyn wasn't black, and just stop lying to me. I'm all for people getting roles that they fit in, but I mean, are they going to cast you as Spicoli, right? And or this some surfer dude or whatever in Fast Times in Ridgemont High? No, because you don't fit the part.
Or as an MLK.
What's that?
Or as an MLK.
Right. Whatever. I mean, because you don't fit the part. But they went way beyond that. And I think where people started to wake up, and I don't mean obviously in the woke sense, but really waking up to what has been happening is just all of these things that just started to not make sense. All of these decisions that Hollywood was making in casting. And not only are they making it in casting, but they're making it and have been making it at the studio level and on sets with the crew, and hiring based on this woke ideology of diversity, equity, inclusion, pushing predominantly on the crew. Traditionally, it has been white males that have been just doing this sort of blue collar work on Hollywood sets, but then now bringing in just all diverse backgrounds, but which would be fine if they were at the level of experience, but because not culturally, it hasn't been what these communities have been doing. They're bringing people who are inexperienced. And when you're looking at a crew and setting lighting and sets and all of these things, that can be very dangerous. It's just like DEI with airlines. It can be, why are you going to hire a pilot that just over the color or the gender or even the sexual preference over the experience and excellence, right?
And when they make a movie that obviously sucks, they blame you and me Because
for
we're
not
sexist,
accepting it.
Yeah, not watching it, not paying for this, not taking our kids to watch their movies, animated movies, and etc. So we're the sexist, the biggest, the racist, all that stuff.
Right.
Just make a great movie. I don't remember a great movie of 2023. I want to say Oppenheimer. Anything else?
I felt like even Oppenheimer had some things in there that just were, first of all, it was way too long. But I can't think. First of all, I was making the film all of 2023, so I was too busy to watch a 3.5 hour film. But I will say an example of it from coming out of Hollywood would be, and really it's not technically Hollywood where they shot it, but Yellowstone is the best example, I want to say, in the last 4 years that was so successful because it embodied American ideals. It embodied American, red-blooded American alpha male who was fighting for his family, was fighting for his land, right? They had owned the land for centuries. They had pioneered there, which caused multiple spinoffs of, I can't think if it was 1887 or 1881 or whatever. Yeah. It was the prequel to his family coming to the Midwest, and they were all successful. And you had his daughter who was really strong, right? She was strong, powerful female or whatever. But it didn't feel.
Why would you have to make her so promiscuous?
Yeah, I know. So again, playing to the appetite of America, right? I mean, it's like there has to, because I've seen some of this stuff. There was a little bit of woke stuff in there as well in the storyline of Yellowstone, but I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, sex sells probably is the answer, but she's very dominant female. But to my point of what America wants to see, that general story of a red-blooded American man fighting for, and then you saw those memes or those, those memes of like when the guy started watching Yellowstone and he was just like a normal guy and whatever, and then it was like, this is the second season, and then by the last season he was like, he had Rip's hat on and was like, and I think that's what appealed to American men, because it was like, oh wow, this is what a man is, and that's what they've really been taking out of. And for women too, and as sexual as she is and all of that and whatever, I think there is something to be said for, portraying a woman as strong, but she doesn't have to be like a lesbian or whatever. She can be a powerful woman who knows her way around a firearm, who can also stand beside her dad and her husband to fight for the family. And I think that, barring the sexual stuff and her craziness and her drinking and all of that, barring that, I do think there's something to be said for women to stand up and be strong right now and be vocal about what's happening in our country.
You just take a look at the Senate, just like I've mentioned before we started the shooting, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, yeah.
She's amazing. Mm-hmm. The way that she handled as the Secret Service director, you should look at it. That's crazy.
Oh, I have no doubt.
She was roasting her. 10 minutes straight.
She was like licking her chops all last week in interviews I can only imagine, yes. Yeah, I mean, like, I can't wait to get, but I think that the women that I run with and my producing partner and myself, and we know our way around a firearm, right? We stand up, we speak out. We're very strong in our faith and our values, but we are ready to fight for this country. And I don't mean like physically fight, right? But if it came to that, we would. But just I think there's just a real movement amongst Christian and conservative women to stand up, especially because the children are at risk and in danger. And being a mama bear in all senses of the word, that if there's a grizzly bear out there with their cubs, you don't mess with the bear anyway, but you definitely don't mess with the cubs, and that this is where I think the tide is going to turn with our country. And it's biblical. I was really impacted early on in my walk with the Lord, which I didn't come to the Lord until I was 29. So I was a ripe old seasoned, gal who had lived in the world for quite some time and experienced in Hollywood. But early on in my walk, I read a book by Stacey Eldridge, who was John Eldridge's wife. He wrote Wild at Heart, and she wrote a book, and the name of the book's escaping me right now. But in there, she goes into the Hebrew word for helpmate, which is ezer kenegdo. And ezer kenegdo means warrior who stands alongside instead of helpmate. That's really different. And that's always stuck with me. And the same word ezer kenegdo, and I don't know the scripture reference in Psalm, but it is in one of the Psalms where ezer kenegdo is used to refer to the Lord as he is our ezer kenegdo, warrior standing alongside. So I thought, wow, that's really powerful. And I always wanted to be that, right? But there's the whole element of, also knowing that your husband is the leader and of the household and all of that. And so there's a real balance to, if you know the word and you stay in the word, a real balance to our roles in society, gender, and how to stand in this hour. So.
But you have to be a power couple. The stronger that you are, the stronger your husband is going to be. You empower him by just showing an example, and the vice versa. So I believe in 2020 they just pushed too hard. They pushed too hard on many things. So they pushed too hard definitely on the agenda, on the social media, in Hollywood, in movies, with the kids, with the pandemic. It was just too hard, too much. If they would push just a little, maybe 50%, maybe we would eat it. But they just pushed it too hard in 2020. In 1 year, everything has changed in 1 year. Our whole world has changed definitely in 2020. With the homeschooling, a lot of parents found out that what are they teaching our kids at school. They found out that we can be with our kid the whole day. I can teach him. It doesn't take 8 hours a day to teach a kid how to write, spell, all that stuff. That's impossible. For 8 hours, you could be a genius. In 12 years, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, that's crazy. That's madness. It's impossible to learn for 8 hours. And I'm saying I'm 36. I can't learn for 8 hours straight. And that's a kid, right? So it's maximum 2 to 3 hours, but it's concentrated. Then he's going to learn a lot of new stuff. I believe that just the push was just too big. And that's exactly what they did. I want to say like almost 10 to 11 days ago with an assassination attempt. It was just a little bit too big of a push. And what I see now, people on the internet, they're united. A lot of Democrats, a lot of liberals are saying like, whoa, that's too much, bro.
Right.
Assassination attempt? I'm not for this. I'm not going to do that. The news that broke up this Sunday that Biden is out, do you think he's alive?
I don't know. I think anything's possible at this point. You can't write a more interesting Hollywood script than what's happening now.
No one's gonna
quite
watch it.
honestly.
Yeah.
I think that I was praying on the way over here about our interview and just different things coming to my head about what time we're in right now and how crazy things are. And, I don't know so this is a good question for you because you were asking about Hollywood reaching across the world. Do you remember when OJ took off in the Bronco? OJ Simpson?
No, that was 1994?
Yeah, something like old. That. Okay. So OJ, like after, he killed Nicole Brown Simpson, and then there was all this stuff, and then he took off in the Bronco sort of like, trying to escape.
Yes.
And it was a chase, and it was basically every news station all over, and we didn't have streaming like we do now. We didn't have the internet or whatever, but it was so like you were glued to the television, and then you were glued to the trial when it happened. And so even if you were like if you weren't 6 years old, if you were like my age, you can remember all the things from the trial, all the little sayings like, if the glove doesn't fit, then you got to acquit, and that type of stuff. But we're in this time where we are living, we're glued to what's happening next. And it's almost, I woke up this morning like, what's going on? Like I just did, but you're absolutely correct. I think that once the exposure of the deep state, the nefarious deep state started to happen, the corruption, the power, once that started to be exposed and people started to learn about it, and Trump started to talk about it, even back in 2016, and, talking about how he was going to possibly arrest Hillary and all of these things, it was sort of, it was waking people up. It's kind of, and I think what happened was, that's when they started to kind of freak out. Like, we're getting exposed. Mm-hmm. We're getting exposed. And over the course of time, that's been 8 years now since Trump was running for 2016 election. And everything, there is a whole contingent of people who want to go down rabbit holes and understand where the money's coming from and who's involved and who this person's business partner is. And it's in our world, we call it sort of mapping. And it's basically mapping out someone to understand their whole backstory and who they are and who they're connected with, because once you lay out all the facts, then it creates a roadmap really to point to who they are. And so there are more, that's why we get so much from social media, because there are these amazing people who do the research mm-hmm. and find out who's connected to who. And so the more that people started to, and when we say wake up, we just mean basically the scales falling from people's eyes, because we believed one thing, and now we're starting to realize that what we believed and who we believed in, as our leaders, and what we trusted is not what we thought it was.
Wolves.
Mm-hmm. And so there, over the course of especially the last year, I would say, as we got closer and closer to the election and Biden started to deteriorate more and more, I think they're just, we say they're overplaying their hand. So they are basically, in trying to scramble to win the game, they are revealing themselves more and more. Mm-hmm. And my hope and prayer over the most recent situation, the assassination attempt, is that they will be exposed. If they're involved, they will be exposed. And, it is, I think that should be, if you're a believer, if you believe in Jesus and you're a follower of Jesus Christ, the word says that all things that are hidden will be revealed. And we should be praying that the light is switched on so that it's all revealed. And what you were referring to, Marjorie Taylor Greene in front of the Senate hearing this morning with the director of the Secret Service, that they're tripping up on their words. They can't answer it properly. They're hiding things. It's the more they hide, the more people are asking questions, the more people are digging. There are just too many smart people out there who, and that's the thing too, is that for some reason they think that the majority of America is stupid. Yes. That there were a bunch of uneducated hillbillies.
Yes.
And which is ironic that I say a bunch of uneducated hillbillies, because J.D. Vance, came, his whole family, he says, were hillbillies. And it's really insulting, actually. It's really insulting to the American people that someone like Hillary Clinton would call the followers of Trump deplorables, and that like we say in our film, we have a clip of Hillary Clinton in our film saying that the Trump supporters need to go to re-education camps, which sounds like a joke. It's not a joke.
That's North Korea. That's China.
It's not a joke, and that's why we made the film Letter to the American Church to say, hey, what you're seeing right now happened in Nazi Germany, happened in Stalin's Russia, and as well Mao's China. This is what they do, and they do send political opponents to re-education camps, which we all know are not re-education camps, right?
They're trying to do the same thing in Canada with Jordan Peterson, right? If you don't do this re-education, we're gonna take off your license,
right?
What is that all about?
Right.
That's 2023, 2024.
Right. Yeah, and I wanted to say something. Let's sort of dial back to your earlier questioning, because I want to make a point, because you'd asked that you had said that that America was ahead of Europe. And I think that at one time that was true. But I want to say, with everything that has been happening in the last 4 to 8 years, they opened their borders first. They have this progressive leftist and really we need to stop saying progressive leftist, because it's Marxist ideology.
That's insulting to true liberals.
That is the Marxist ideology has progressed way further in Europe now than it has in the United States, and it's progressed way further in Canada. So European countries and Canada are way further along in their Marxist, the communist implementation of these policies than we are. So that's why I answered the question the way that I did back in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, that America was leading all of that. But then what happened was Europe and Canada became the testing grounds for, will this really work? At the end of it, the goal is communism, where a small group of wealthy, powerful people run the rest of the world. And it sounds like a movie.
Yes.
It sounds fake. It sounds like a conspiracy theorist. But if you've read Revelation, if you've read any part of the Bible, and you even understand the Roman Empire historically, you understand that there's biblical precedence for what's happening now. And there's prophecy in the Word that talks about where we are right now. Now, we're in the end times. Yes. How close are we? I cannot say. All I can say is that we need to be in the Word of God every single day, and we need to be asking God to show us, to align what's in the Word of God with what's happening now, so that we can understand the times and seasons that we're in.
So Europe's borders were open, I want to say, since 2016.
Yes.
Who do you think is behind this? Just those 5 to 10 big families around the globe, that's it?
Well,
because I want to say Germany started it.
Well, I want to be careful not to get too far into all the details, because first of all, safety reasons, I think it's important to be wise, right? About, you don't put everything out there. I can definitely say, and this is backed up, is that the Rothschild family is behind this as one of the players in this. Obviously, we know even, Tucker Carlson and even J.D. Vance talked about Soros today. I mean, we all know Soros's name, but we need to ask ourselves who, and this is what I want to challenge your audience. That's why I want to challenge people to do their own research and to do their own digging. There's so much that you can find on alternative sites, like on Rumble, there's BitChute, I see a lot of stuff on who I follow on Instagram. I mean, they're just, and again, these people, they do their history, and they go back historically, and they find out, they find out who's behind this. There are a small group, and this is obvious, a lot of people know this, that there are a small group of people who are running this operation at the very top of the world, and their full intention is to be a one world order, and that a one world order means essentially communism, and that we would be slaves. And look, it's come out of people's mouths, like I believe it was Noah Harari, who is at the World Economic Forum, called us useless eaters. And
useless people,
useless eaters, right? Useless eaters, because we're just consuming all of the goods that should be, meant for them. Also, the climate change ideology is a way to, it's just another tool like COVID to restrict us, put international restrictions on us so that we will comply with their system. There are billions of dollars that are being filtered through the New Green Deal and all of this green energy stuff. Well, that money is filtering all the way up to these people. It is very, very strategic in terms of money, first of all, and power, which is these two concepts are as age old as time, and really what money, power, pride, which are the hallmarks of Satan. So, I mean, the hallmark, that's, the thief came to kill, steal, and destroy, didn't he?
But they can't help themselves. For instance, they say that climate change is real and people and human cause the climate change, and at the same time they fly in with their private jets. Can you just hide them? Can you go on one private jet, just 10 of you? They can't help themselves.
They don't, because
they think
we're at the point where they are doing all of this openly. They're doing everything openly. And it's really to the point where they're not trying to hide anything. And that's why when you say that people are waking up, well, I think I can't get behind the mind of what they're doing and why they're doing everything so openly. But that is, at the end of the day, that is really, again, the hallmark of Satan, which is that, you can hide for only so long, and then your true self is revealed. And so we're in that place where we are calling good evil and evil good. People are. And with the climate change New Green Deal hoax, I mean, you can look at the data, which is saying that the world isn't warming. I mean, the legitimate data is refuting all of the climate change ideas. Yet they're continuing to push it. They're continuing. That is, if you go to the World Economic Forum's website, and I'm not saying, and again, to answer your question, I'm not saying it's only the World Economic Forum. I'm just saying that they are an arm of what is happening. But if you go to their website, it's all about climate change. And it is meant to, they've been talking about climate change lockdowns. It's the goal behind the electric vehicles and Gavin Newsom's decision to outlaw gasoline vehicles after 2035, which, again, we have to ask ourselves, who's profiting from these decisions? And so there is so much going on, and I'm just a woman who, I always wanted to be an actress. I always wanted to tell good stories and change people's lives in a positive way through what I was doing. Whether it was, I ended up doing a lot of commercials, and my heart was to like cheer people up and make them laugh or whatever. And then into filmmaking, which was to also do the same thing, tell good stories, cheer people up and reveal the truth. And so I'm not an expert in all of this, but again, if you have two brain cells to rub together and you start to do your research and look at everything, it's not adding up. And when you look at the Bible and read the Word, it pulls everything together so that it puts a framework around what's happening. Oh, I see it there. There's a scripture that I was reading over the last week, a couple of them. One of them is in Psalms, and it talks about how the net that the enemy laid for the righteous, the enemy will get caught in, right? And I'm paraphrasing. I was going to open the word, but I don't want to take the time to flip through it. And then a couple chapters later, I think it's Psalm 7 and Psalm 9, the pit that the enemy dug for the righteous, the enemy will fall into. And I believe right now we're finding ourselves in that place. And I have not been able. If it weren't for my faith in Jesus and the Word of God, I would not have been able to get through these last, 4 to 8 years with my mental health intact. But I understand that God's doing something ultimately, and really ultimately leading people to Himself by exposing good and evil. So that even sort of the normal, maybe middle of the road, maybe I went to church a couple times when I was growing up, but I'm not really a believer. I'm kind of an agnostic or an atheist. Even they're seeing the good versus evil right now, and that is leading them to Christ. So
I'm 36 years old. I remember myself being almost heretic for 30 plus years. I hated Jesus. I hated the religion. I hated Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox, all the Christianity. I never understood why do people go to the churches, because I'm from Lithuania. Catholicism is number one religion. There are a lot of Catholics, no Protestants, almost no Protestants at all. And all those scandals with the pedophilia, the way that Pope is in charge of everything, he's like the God with all those robes, with the Vatican being just built with gold, and at the same time there are millions of poor people in the world. I was like, I don't want to be a part of this religion, with this cult. And I remember myself driving with my wife in a car in 2022, I want to say. And I was driving, and that was a long trip. We were going from Spain to Lithuania. It was a three-day drive, and I was asking her, what if everything that is going on in the world is just God's sign for us to see and acknowledge and to realize this is how the world can look like if you go against me, against God.
Wow.
Maybe that's it.
Wow.
And that was the triggering thing that triggered me to get a little bit deeper into the religion. Once I got here into the U.S., a friend of mine invited us to the church in Westlake Village. And I was like, whoa, that's just a regular building. People are singing.
Yeah.
The pastor is just dressed like a normal human being, like a regular guy. He has a family. He has kids. People are just chanting. They love Jesus in a different. I was like, so this is the same Jesus that I was seeing in Lithuania, where everything is like bow down. You're always guilty. Right. Money, donation, and etc. And that's what opened my eyes. I was like, I have to dig in. And I believe I'm not the only one, especially after 2020. No. A lot of people woke up like, wait a minute.
Right.
At first you're saying this, if you get one shot, you're not going to get the disease. If you get 2 shots, 3 shots, 4 shots.
Right.
Biden has 7, I want to say, right? 6 to 7.
Yeah.
And he's got COVID.
He's got COVID,
for
apparently.
the 3rd time, I want to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Where's the apologies?
Right. You're absolutely right. I mean, I'm so glad that, you're a product of the sort of Great Awakening, right? Of seeing everything that's going on. I think that's why, I know that's why God's doing that now, is to reveal what is happening between good and evil. And you think, well, how can a small group of people want to run the world? And, I think there's a belief in the world, especially in this country, like people are mostly good.
Yes.
There's that belief, right? Well, the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible, the scripture says that the heart is deceitful above all else. And, the man is sin, the thing about the fall of Adam and sin is that we were perpetually mostly not good. Mm-hmm. We were not good. And that's why we need a savior. It's kind of the flip-flop around. But if we approach things from people are mostly good, then we will never understand why people do the things that they do. Right? But if you flip it around and people say people realize that we are all sinners and we are mostly bad. And the only way out of that is Jesus Christ and the blood of Jesus, to be forgiven and to start anew and afresh in life, then that's the only thing that makes sense. And it's the only thing also that makes sense when we start talking about child sex trafficking and what is happening with our children. And when you think of the open borders, and if you start to see, think about all of the children that are being brought across the borders. They come with little wristbands, many of them, about the wristband says where they're supposed to go. So they're smuggled in, right, by the cartel, and then oftentimes they're left. And we see the most horrific images from some brave camera men and women who are basically on the front lines, seeing all sorts of horrific things on the border, whether it's underwear or whatever. Clearly, these kids have been through massive sexual trauma as children, right? And then they go off somewhere to be, where are they now? Where are they now? Hundreds of thousands of children. Now, I will say, if we approach things from an understanding of people are mostly good, why would they do that? It never brings any answers to the question. The only answer to that question is that people are mostly bad. And Satan, who is the opposer of the brethren and of the world, that he leads people. Mostly he leads people, and this is why this is happening. And so, I'm very thankful for the Great Awakening, and I pray that it continues to happen. Do I think that things are going to get worse before they get better? I think so. I say that because I don't think that, especially within the church, which is the crux of our film, Letter to the American Church, because the message is to the church, that people are still very, very comfortable in their lives. I mean, I've met people inside and outside the church who say, I don't get involved in politics. I don't want to know what's going on. Well, you're going to want to know real quick what's going on once we're under communist rule. And, how late is it going to be till you don't have to knock on doors or put a sign up in your yard, but at least know what's going on. The word says that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And I think it's really ignorant of people to just say, that's just not for me. It's not an issue of whether it's for you or against you. It just is. It is. And, it's like the heat outside. It's like, it's hot. You have to deal with it. It's not you choose you choose it or you don't choose it. It's there. And so it took a lot for some of these regimes, right? For under Hitler, Mao, and Stalin, for it to get bad enough that they really woke up. And I don't know how bad it's going to have to get for people to wake up, but I do know that more people are coming to Christ, and that's amazing, and it blesses God's heart.
In regards to people generally being good, and I remember myself in 2022, I watched one podcast with Dennis Prager.
Which one? One podcast?
Yeah, with him. He was a guest, and he mentioned that he had some books written. I was like, maybe I should dig into his books. So I read his book, Still the Best Hope. And he was saying this thing that children are being born not good or bad. They're like kind of a neutral. I was like, what?
I used to believe that. Yeah.
So now it makes sense. And once you dig into the Bible, once you dig into the the words of Jesus, you realize that the only battle right now is spiritual battle. It's not about the money or something. That's a spiritual battle. That's the base of everything. And we're in the midst of it. You can line up to the spiritual battle absolutely everything, from child trafficking to abortions to money laundering to warmongering to war industrial complex with the worlds all around the world, all this stuff. It is all the part of a spiritual battle. That's it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. I see it absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
Like everywhere.
Yeah.
That's the spirit. These are demons.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And that's exactly what happened. I want to make sure that that's fixed. That the scales fell from your eyes as if you were blind and now you can see. And that is when you see it, you can't unsee it. And humans have a natural desire to know what's going on. And when you see it and it awakens that hunger to know, you want more. And, I am so driven by other people in this movement. And when I say movement, call us conservatives, call us patriots, call us, Christians, whatever. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just people who stand for righteousness and justice and who understand that America genuinely was founded on just the most amazing principles.
Amen.
And that's not to say lesser of any other countries. It just, that is, God supernaturally created this country and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and it stood the test of time, and now it's a real shaking. And I want to say that the people who are standing for the children, standing for freedom, standing against communism, standing against, obviously, a few years ago we stood against the vaccine mandates. We live in California, standing against all of these crazy bills that are being passed in our state legislature.
They just passed the AB 9055. That's madness. They're just taking away the children.
Yeah, so that one is where the teachers, and I'm paraphrasing because my friend Nicole Pearson, who's in the film, and also just a warrior attorney on the front lines here, breaks it down in a much more intricate way, which is important. But I think the general gist is it's codifying or legalizing teachers in public schools to keep secrets from their parents, whether it's transitioning from one gender to the other, taking hormone replacement therapy, or sexuality or whatever. So it's essentially, again, we talk about this in the film Letter to the American Church, where the state comes in between the parent-child relationship, which is exactly what happened with Stalin, Mao, and Hitler. Mao actually bribed the children with meals and candy and cash. He bribed the children to come with him, to turn on their parents. And there were, I don't know what the statistic was, at least I want to say hundreds of thousands, if not millions of parents were killed by the children in Mao's revolution because they turned on their parents. They were convinced to turn on their parents, which is exactly what's happening now. Don't quote me on those numbers because, again, I don't have all the numbers memorized, but I do know that that it's this very same principle that is being enacted here. And what I wanted to say is that when you're awake and you're digging and you're standing, you're learning knowledge, you're going down sort of the rabbit holes and understanding and mapping, and you want to fight, you want to stand for what's right. You do. And if you're a parent, I'm a parent to two stepsons, but I'm not a parent to, I didn't have a child. But I look at these precious children and I just, I look at your son when I walked in. It's like the innocence, the most precious innocence. Like what they're doing to children is Satan is trying to rob that, kill, steal, destroy, coming in and going after the children. And if we don't stand for the children in our society, we're done as a civilization.
Because God hates that.
Yeah.
Because God hates when innocent blood is being shed, and it's happening on all levels. Do you know the story of Cain Velasquez here in California?
Who was it?
Cain Velasquez.
Huh.
Cain Velasquez was a UFC champion, a heavyweight, a great guy, a family guy. So 2 years ago, I want to say that was 2022. His daughter, I want to say she was 5 to 6 years old. She tells him, his dad, that she was abused almost 100 times in her kindergarten, in school, by manager's son, I want to say. And he goes off.
Right.
He chases the guy with the gun. He almost kills him.
Right.
He doesn't. He's being arrested. He gets, I want to say, almost a year in jail. Now he's being prosecuted. He's still not in jail right now, but he's going to get the verdict, I want to say, this year, maybe next year. And he's about to have for 20 years.
And this is the dad.
This is the dad.
Yeah.
And to that guy,
he's free.
He's free. Nothing happened.
This is when I say we're at the point where we call evil good and good evil, and it's not us. It's those who are in authority, and this is the way to destroy a society, is by penalizing those who are good.
Yes.
Those who in LA there was. A guy, someone had broken onto someone's property. Someone broke over, jumped the gate and started to come at the house and had a firearm. The homeowner had a permit, I believe a CCW, concealed carry weapon permit, and shot at the guy. And that guy, his permit was taken away, and the other guy was completely let go. And this is how to destroy a society. And I think that part of it too is the ideology from the progressive leftists or the Marxist, the DAs, the Soros-backed DAs, or whoever you want to call them. There's definitely one in LA. But that if we make standing up for justice and righteousness, if we demonize those people, then maybe they won't do it, and we'll just let things. I mean, maybe they'll be deterred from doing it, right? So, example, average gun owner, could theoretically in California be the one who takes the fall rather than the criminal, right?
Yes.
The legal gun owner who has training and done all of gone through all the steps. If they are being penalized for crime that's happening, but the criminal goes free, then maybe the gun owner won't want to do anything or make different choices, right? Psychological play. Or the dad thinking, oh, well, we live in a society where nothing's going to be done, so I'm not going to do anything. But there's no justice being served. And the word says, God says, I am the God of righteousness and justice. And so our hearts burn for righteousness and justice. It can only be the opposer who is not for righteousness and justice. Justice is inherent in righteousness. And so our burning for justice, it's of God.
Yes.
It's righteous. And we've been taught that that's bad. And I'll give another example. So obviously January 6th, we both know Siaka. He was arrested for, being on the grounds, and, just many, many others. And it's like, you take one step in a direction of righteousness and justice where you're going to stand up and speak out and, and exercise your constitutional right to, now I'm not saying that like smashing in the doors and, going in or whatever. But I'm just saying even being on the grounds to stand up and speak out. I mean, that's demonized. And so, who wants to do that? everything is just upside down. And the only way to make sense of it is the word of God. And
so tell me, so they got these demons, those monsters, like Gavin Newsom, for instance, but he gets elected 2 times in a row. Who elects this guy? The right people, they just don't show up and they don't vote?
Well, it's my personal opinion that the voting, so you know how the voting was questioned 2020 across the country with Trump and everything. Well, I think California has led the voter fraud. And I think they've been the leaders of it. I think that Gavin Newsom was, especially in the recall, maybe the first, right? Maybe the first one, he was legitimately elected, but especially in the recall, I believe that there was a lot of flipping of the votes in the machines. And I'll tell you, why do I say that? Do I have evidence? I know in this last election, in my small town, in California, I know someone who works at the polling booth, and there were no less. I live in a small town of like 17,000, 18,000 people, which is relatively small for California, and there were at least 5 people that I know of, according to my friend who's a poll watcher, who voted. And when they voted on the machine, and when they printed out the ballot, they looked at the ballot and it had flipped their votes. That was just 5. How many people did not double check their ballot? That was 5 out of 17,000, right? There was probably more. I also know that in our last city council election in 2022, there was a candidate who found, at least when he lost by, say, I think 11 votes, and he was the conservative candidate. When he lost by 11 votes, he started investigating as much as he could. And he found out that there were at least 2 or 3 people, I don't know the exact number, at least 2, maybe more, people who voted, who sent their ballot in. And then when he checked with them, did you vote? Did you send their ballot in? They said, we didn't vote. I don't know how a vote got through. So someone had probably stolen a ballot from their mailbox, got their hands on one of their ballots, when they mail them out, and voted for that person. So that was at least for sure 2, if not more. And again, town of 17,000. Now, for him to go and challenge the election based on reputable information, it costs somewhere in the ballpark of $500 per day for him to challenge the county to do a recount. So this person cannot afford, the average person cannot afford $500 a day to do a recount. And so it is my personal belief that Gavin Newsom has been installed as the governor of California by the same people who installed Biden and the whole progressive leftist Democrat Party right now. The super majority in California, both in the assembly and the House, the state legislature, is a super majority in California. And I think so people say, so California goes, so the rest of the country. And I believe that California, apart from San Francisco and Los Angeles, I believe that we're red. 100%. And it is my hope and my heart that in this next election, we will show up and show out so that no matter what voter fraud or machines or flipping of votes or that we will absolutely, no pun intended, trump their cheating. That's my hope.
But the people that voted, for instance, they intentionally voted for Newsom 2 times in a row, right? Don't they see the difference? Los Angeles was one of the best cities in the world in 1990s, I want to say, even early 2000s. Mm-hmm. It was safe. Mm-hmm. Since 2020, that's a pit hole. That's a Gotham. I never go to LA. nothing to do there.
I never come down here anymore where we are right now.
Nothing to do there. That's exactly what I feel. Especially with my family. When we go to LA, maybe to Santa Monica, I'm always aware, like, where's my child? Where's my wife? Who's this guy? Who's this guy? Why he's urinating on the street? Who is this homeless? Who is this junkie? Me as a male, that's a job to go to LA. Because that's super not safe.
Right.
So the difference, you can see it, you can feel it, the difference. If you live in LA or in LA area for 30 years, you can see that it was a great city. And now it became a pit hole. The same happened to San Francisco, one of the most beautiful cities in the whole world, right? Oakland.
Yeah.
Oakland is what?
Yeah.
There was a shooting 2 days ago. They were just shooting like in a movie.
Right.
That's mind-boggling. They still vote for that guy. And the guy like Bill Maher, he says, he's a win. Is he stupid? How can he say that Gavin Newsom is a winner? He's a con artist.
Yeah.
He destroyed the most beautiful state in the whole states. He destroyed it.
Right.
You've got so many parks. You got the Yosemite Park. You got the Lake Tahoe. You got the OC. You got the LA. You got the hills. You got everything. And that's a Gotham.
Well, many people like
Batman.
Bill Maher and, a lot of the progressive leftist Hollywood people are, first of all, hypocrites, but second of all, talking pieces, mouthpieces for the left. I mean, how can The View still defend all of the crazy, like the women on The View, for example, still defend all of the craziness of the left and also, get on the bandwagon to, more or less say, how could the shooter have missed? I mean, how many people are saying,
can you imagine you saying this?
I mean, Secret Service would probably get on a slope and come up and get me if I said that. You know what I mean? As a conservative, but I think to your point, I think people are waking up. I mean, I think people are seeing the deterioration of what's happening in California. I mean, California used to be a vacation place. So even if you didn't live here, you at least know that, Venice Beach was somewhere to hang out, or, San Francisco was really cool. And I lived actually in both places. I lived in San Francisco for several years while I was going to UC Davis. That's actually where I started my acting career. And the shops on Market Street were all of like Market Street, Van Ness, all of the main streets. It was thriving. You could walk up and down, and you could it was just all sorts of interesting things. It was a thriving city, and now almost every shop has shut down. It's abandoned. It used to be like the rough area used to be limited to the Tenderloin, which was only a few block radius. And now it's expanded everywhere. Venice used to be gorgeous, like Surfer Town, all sorts of cute little shops, maybe a little bit on the expensive side, like boutiques and things like this. But now, last time I was in Venice, I think I was with my parents, and there was a CVS right on the main street there, and was in the CVS with my very Democrat parents, like, Kennedy Democrat parents. And my dad saw someone stealing sunglasses and putting it in his jacket. And my dad's like, that guy just stole. Did anyone see it? That guy just stole glasses. I said, Dad.
Calm down.
I said, Dad, it's totally illegal for him to steal those glasses, essentially, up until $900. And then at $900, that's when it gets a little bit more stiff of a penalty. But he can do that. He was like, what? I'm like, well, Dad, like... These are the policies in California. Even the diehard Democrats don't understand what the policies are, because they're literally just robots, right? Following one party. Look, if you follow either the far, far left or the far, far right, like where either side can do no wrong, and you don't have a critical analysis of the choices of either side, then you're the problem, right?
Yeah.
You have to come to sort of, and I'm not saying middle as in libertarian, like, a lot of people are saying, oh, I'm a libertarian because I'm not going to go with the other part. Well, that's fine. Actually, libertarian basically means a constitutionalist. They believe in the Constitution. But, either side is is too much. You have to come at it with very critical eye. And I just think that these, especially this older generation in their 60s, 70s, 80s, probably more like 70s, 80s, these Democrats in California are just riding with Biden or like going with the party, like whatever they say, fall in line, and just not critical analysis of anything. So yeah, I mean, I do think people are waking up, and it is my hope and my prayer that that they continue to show their hand, that they continue to get caught up in their net. And the other thing that I saw too in the last couple of years, as I was praying and reading and talking about things, like they've built this, the progressive Democrats and really the world elite, we briefly talked about earlier. It's like sort of built this, basically this, what Jenga is, the game Jenga. Oh, yeah. So it's where you from the bottom up, you build the tower, which reminds me of the Tower of Babel. But you build the tower up, and then the game is as you pull each out and hope it doesn't fall. Well, I believe that just as they're going to get caught in the net, fall in the pit, that their house that they've built is like a Jenga tower, and it's just one brick away, pulling it out, that it's going to all come down, if it's not already. I mean, that is how close what they're doing, because God will not. God's. We think, okay, how long, Lord? I was just reading in Psalms this morning, and David's like, how long, Lord, will you withstand this, right? How long until we see justice, right? And I feel like that's the cry of our hearts, is how long is this going to last? Now, again, that being said, when their tower comes down with the Jenga tower, that's when shaking's going to happen. What's that going to look like? I don't know, but I think we should brace ourselves.
Can you imagine seeing Fauci prosecuted? How would it feel like just for regular people here in the US that were just taking those jabs and they were not working, that lost family members? And once he testifies, he said that 6 feet is just, I made it up. Masks that don't work. And
right.
people still wear masks here in LA. The prosecution, at least of Fauci, that would be a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
That's madness. Let's talk about the movie that you made, A Letter to the American Church. Yeah. How do you know Eric Metaxas?
So both my producing partner and I were attending a church in LA, not in LA actually, in Ventura County, called Godspeak, and
Rob McCoy,
yeah. And we were both attending, and Eric, he has a lot of well-known speakers come in, authors, people from our community come in, and he had Eric Metaxas come in and speak about his new book. Back then it was October, I think it was September of 2022, when he had just released his Letters to the American Church book, and he was talking about it. And I actually I wasn't in the audience that day. I think I was watching it online. But my producing partner was there, and she said that as he started talking about it, she started to see like all the visuals of the book and Hitler, and how what Hitler was doing lined up with what was happening now in this country, and how the church didn't stand up, and all of these things. And she said her mind just started seeing all of it, and she felt the call of God to as she was seeing it, want to show others the visually. And she called me, I think, on the way home and said, did you see Eric speak today? And again, I can't remember if I did or I didn't. I don't think I did. I think I was like sick that morning or something. And I said, no, but I'll get the book. And she said, get the book. I think we should make a film about it. And we hadn't met Eric at that point. So I got the book. I ordered it on Amazon. It came the next day. It's a very short book, so it's a very quick read. And initially, when I read it, the only part that I saw was like the Nazi stuff, the historical stuff, because I'm kind of a buff with that old footage, and just kind of, I've seen a few really well done Nazi docuseries and things like that. One BBC, PBS one called Rise of the Nazis, which was compelling, as well as there was another film. It was a theatrical series called The Man in the High Tower. Mm-hmm. And so I was just seeing sort of creatively some of that stuff as I was reading it, but I didn't know how to, articulate everything else. But we just sort of just started to take steps of faith. And, I knew that I'm someone who wants to share the truth, share my opinion, encourage people to stand up and speak out. So that like resonated with me, and very much about Bonhoeffer, which people have read. So many people have read Eric's book, Bonhoeffer. It was a New York Times bestseller. And really being someone who, against all odds, stood up in the face of tyranny during the World War II in Nazi Germany, and what was happening, and challenging the church to speak up. So we were connected to Eric through a friend of ours, and then we set up a meeting, and we had a conversation with him, and he had said to us that he was at a conference, like a faith-based conference, a couple of months prior to that, and the pastor had prayed over him about his book. Now, mind you, no film had been made yet. He was just doing the tour to talk about his book, and this pastor prayed over him. This book will be seen on many screens across the country and around the world. Now, when that word was given, that didn't make any sense to Eric, that your book will be seen on many screens across the country and the world. So when we had the meeting with him and we presented the idea, he was like, this confirms the word, the prayer, right? Because prophecy, and I'm not a cessationist, I'm a continuist, and prophecy is for today. Still, God speaks. And so we started taking steps ahead. Eric called up his friend Charlie Kirk at Turning Point USA and said, Charlie, I just found a team to make this book into a film. Do you want to be part of it? And Charlie said, yes, I want to be part of it. And so Turning Point backed us financially for the movie to be made. And for a season, it was a little bit hurry up and wait, because it takes a long while for the funding to come through and, just all the things to happen, the ducks in a row. But then all of a sudden it was one of the things we had to do during that season was, and this, ties into your intro for me and being a writer and everything, is you needed to adapt the book into a screenplay, which was hard because it wasn't like, I'll use the example Hillbilly Elegy, which I watched last night, which is J.D. Vance's life and his memoir, which was written as a memoir. So when you created the characters and wrote the characters for the narrative film, it was like kind of a no-brainer because all the story was laid out. For this one, we had to adapt sort of a historical look at what was happening in Nazi Germany and in the United States now, and then paint a visual picture and tell a compelling story. At the time that Rachel, my producing partner, and I met, she was a senior VP at Sony Pictures. She oversaw 80 markets for global marketing of their films and worked on just countless films, Oscar winners, and all of that. I mean, she's really has this amazing background in the industry. And then myself, coming from in front of the camera for most of my years, it was really interesting for us to come together, because she was behind the scenes, I was in front of the scenes. So we brought this, we brought strengths to writing the script, telling the story, visualizing what we wanted, like the story we wanted to tell. But it wasn't until we started to pull the clips, because you'll see in this film, I want to say there was over 1,000 clips that I pulled like pretty much single-handedly. I mean, Rachel had her tasks that she was doing, and I pulled, and so I was basically tasked. I said I'll do it and pull all the clips, and so I mean literally months of pulling clips of from social media and TikTok and news clips and all of these things, and then we had all the historical footage and so as we were pulling these clips and sort of like categorizing them and lining up the story of the book, it's just like it all sort of come like you started to paint the picture. It was like when you have a canvas that's blank and then you have all these paints. So you're like, I know the colors that I have, but how are they going to paint the painting and make it compelling? And so we really knew that we wanted amazing graphic design, that we wanted amazing color, and we ended up using as well we used AI for some of the photos that we did, which we sort of have our staunch stance against AI for all the bad reasons, but it ended up being really good because there weren't a ton of photos of, say, like Herbert Marcuse, and we did some other photos that were really kind of helped tell the story without having to dig and find photos of these people. So that's how it came to be. Once we went into production, it was from June of 2023. The film was finished in December 2023. So that amount of time was such a short amount of time to make a documentary. But we knew, and I believe we know, I'm not going to say I believe because it was the truth, that God's hand was on this film and that it was to be released during election year. And so far, I want to say to that prophecy, it's been on thousands of screens across the country. And this coming Saturday, the July 27th, it will be released on Daystar TV, which is one of the largest Christian networks in the world. It will reach total, and I'm not saying that 6.5 billion people are going to sit down and watch it, but the reach of the network reaches 6.5 billion people.
Amazing.
In countries all over the world. We've had people reach out from Canada, UK, Brazil. I think our fourth most watched country in the world behind UK, New Zealand, Canada, or fifth is like Norway. And so, you can look to see who's streaming the film. And
I would say they're secular.
It's really interesting. If you look, I did do a screenshot of all the countries that were watching our film, and I was like shocked at like, wow. I mean, not only are we reaching these countries, but think about like how they're learning the truth. They're waking up. The scales are falling from their eyes. It doesn't mean that you have to all of a sudden change political parties or this, that, or the other, but we need to know what's going on. We need to know that what's happening, the crux of what's happening is we are in the midst of a Marxist communist takeover in Europe, in the United States. That is what we're fighting against.
Yeah, but that's Marxism 2.0. Mm-hmm. Back in the day in USSR, in China, there were no LGBTQ plus propaganda. They weren't sexualizing their kids. Mm-hmm. Now what we see is like it all lines up to this one thing, but they use those multiple ways how to push this agenda. Mm-hmm. When you take, for instance, we take even the border, the fentanyl crisis, they attack the children, mm-hmm. then they mutilate the children, then they sell the children, then they do abortions to the children. It all lines up to one thing, but it's a new warfare. That's a 2.0, 3.0 maybe even.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people don't realize or make the connection that it's Marxism, because Marxism traditionally has been about economic classes.
Yes.
But the way, and this violence was specifically Herbert Marcuse and I can't think of the other guy's name right now. I'm having a brain explosion. But there was the Marxist ideals were taken. Antonio Gramsci wrote in Letters from Prison, how to take old Marxist ideals that was based on economic class and take over the West. So it was basically a handbook to teach the West how to take over. And it was like, okay, well, in old Marxism, it would be economic, right? You would divide people with economic class and create a proletariat, right, at the bottom to overthrow the ruling class. Now, this is how you do it in the West. And so you create an oppressed class group, LGBTQ, those who are, people of color, racism, all of these things, that these people are so fed up. You see it with BLM and all these things. And really we have Patrisse Cullors, who's started BLM, the head of BLM, saying on tape in our film that I'm a trained Marxist, and that they use Marxist principles to create that proletariat or revolution, the revolutionists, in order to take over society, to destroy a society so that the ruling class can come in, so that the people who are doing this can come in and take over. And so it's basically using Marxist principles to create a communist society. So we go into the film why the push of LGBTQ in this country. One of the reasons, which is basically creating this class of people, making the separation. There's many reasons why it's done, but to make this separation between LGBTQ and straight, and we've got all of our race classes, we have our DEI. And so divided up into, we're the oppressed group, and we're going to stand up against the oppressor, and we're going to overthrow, and we're going to do whatever it is. And now you see it plays out in real time, even as this movie's been out, that you have the pro-Palestinian groups, which are the oppressed groups, right? Pro-Palestinian groups. We're oppressed by Israel, we're oppressed. And then the pro-Palestinian aligning, or rather the LGBTQ aligning with the pro-Palestinian, because they're the oppressed group, so clearly not understanding the ideology behind all of it, that they don't even realize that if they step into Palestine, that they will be killed for
literally
being
that's
gay.
An oxymoron. So pro-Palestinians with LGBT.
Perfect example of this creating this oppressed revolutionary group in our country, because people are aligning when it doesn't even make sense, right? They're coming together and aligning as kind of one when it doesn't even make sense. But I think that as especially this California's government goes after children, people around the country see that the teachers or the government is separating, trying to come in between the parents and the teachers and the parents. Like, they're trying to come in, and the effect that it's having on children, what the children are being taught, the drag queen story hour, the sexualization of children, all of these things. I think it's the going after children that's been so eye-opening to many parents who were previously on the left, that it's like, this doesn't, this is crazy. I mean, they have heard so many times people who were progressive leftists like saying, this is going off the deep end, right? And, there's this, and it breaks my heart, because how many children's lives have to be lost or ruined in this battle?
Yes.
In order to, and there's also, as you know, and probably many of your viewers know, there's this move and push towards legalizing pedophilia.
MAP.
Yeah. And so the ultimate, and again, let's go back to, we were talking about a little while ago, like, if you think all people are good, then what is this push for pedophilia? Like, it's so grieving to my heart. I mean, I can't, unless you Unless, again, you brought up the demonic realm, like unless you are aligned with
That's the only
Satan,
explanation.
if you're aligned with Satan, then like all systems go. But Charlie Kirk says in our film, Marxists want to do three things. They want to go after religion, they want to go after family, and they want to go after property. And if you see in communist China, that's exactly what they've done. That's how, that's exactly what Kim Jong-un has done in North Korea. These are the hallmarks of communism: religion, family, property. And you have seen that they have... obviously, Christians are being persecuted in this country. Even Judaism is being persecuted now more than ever that we've seen in our lifetime. Family coming after the children. Gavin Newsom, there's a line in our film as well where Gavin Newsom literally said, as a quote, he's speaking to teachers and school boards in our state, saying that if you won't do your job correctly, the state will come in and do it for you. And that's exactly what the intent is.
He was penalizing the Temecula for $1.5 million, right?
Right. He said, if you can't do your job, the state will come in and do it for you. I was like, wow, right out of the horse's mouth. Exactly our point. And then the third is property. And we will see that you've got open borders, you've got people, you've got crime going up, you've got robberies, you have, flashback 4 years ago, you've got BLM, the riots, the pro-Palestinian riots, smashing things, destroying statues, all of that, all again Marxist tactics to overthrow the country. You
remember the first question that was on my podcast? I was asking you about the influence of the U.S. on the world. So in Lithuania in 2020, so Lithuania from the U.S. is, I want to say, 6,000 to 7,000 miles away, right?
Right.
The BLM happens in the U.S. The next day, the protests happen in our capital of Lithuania.
Right.
So those spoiled brats, the girls, the boys, the very progressive, chant, and they go with the written on the paper, "Fuck the police." In Lithuania, they've got no idea what are they chanting for.
Right.
What does Lithuania have to do with BLM? With the U.S. Fuck the police. If I smack you right now, you're gonna call the police that you wanna fuck now.
And then, but that is how this ideology has infiltrated, infiltrated all over Europe, Eastern Europe, right, into other countries, and it's a really clear sign that this has been a global push. This has been a global push to get the youth, these spoiled little brats, or however you call them, to believe that they need to stand with the oppressed, not even knowing the facts of the situation or the case, the intricate details, or any of that.
Just want to rebel. They just want to rebel.
Yeah, and that was so. I mean, think about the BLM riots happened right during the COVID shutdown, and it was, some of the worst, especially I remember in LA. This was the impetus of us moving out of the city, which was everybody shut down. Everybody was bored, right? And freaking out and kind of like, what is happening to our world? And then these riots happen, and it literally felt like our country was being destroyed. And it was. Right. It was in many respects, it was being destroyed. But the fact that it wasn't fully destroyed, I believe, is a tenement to to our country. It points to how strong our country is, how strong the Constitution is, how strong our people are. And I'm not saying that it's not there aren't strong people in other countries. I'm just saying here there were many judges. There's so many crazy things that went through the courts the last few years, and much of it has been overturned. The vaccine mandates, there were, in Arizona, the Ninth Circuit just a couple weeks ago, they made a ruling on voter ID. It's necessary to have voter ID in Arizona. And they've overturned some of Newsom's terrible policies. And so, and that's our judicial system, right? And say what you will. I mean, there's definitely corruption in our judicial system for sure. But I do think that I have to say that when Biden took office, which is still so hard for me to say, even to call him president, because I don't believe he's legitimately the president. But when he took office in 2020, I thought that we were going to be in an even worse place that right now than we are. And I just think it's because,
At least economically. I thought you were going off the cliff economically.
I thought we were. I thought in 4 years we were going to be like China. We were going to be seriously like China. It hasn't. But I want to say I think it's because there's been so many people speaking out and so many people waking up, and they can't once you shine your light on something and you see it, they can't hide it anymore. So it's like people are seeing, and even. It's such an amazing place. It's in many ways it's exciting to be alive at this time. I mean, it's also scary. It's kind of like being on a roller coaster. It's like you pay the money to go on a roller coaster and you strap in, and then you're like at the top of it and you're like, what did I just do? It kind of feels a little bit like that. But I know that God has created us for such a time as this, that imagine what the apostles went through. Imagine being Paul and being crucified upside down and all of the persecution, all the things they went through. They were born for such a time as that. We were born for such a time as this. And making a film, that is so, tying it back to the film, Rachel and I are both Ezer Kenegdos, warriors who stand alongside and strong women. And, we wanted to do something. And so we took our gifts, talents, and abilities that God has given us and taken all of our years of experience, over 50 years combined in Hollywood, to come together and make a movie. And we've got other projects in the works, but to make a movie that was going to wake people up, because we were praying, what can we do? You feel like, then the other thing too, and that we didn't even get into, I don't think you mentioned, I don't know where it was on in my bio, but from 2021 to 2022, I served on city council in my small city in California. Yes. And so, again, that was for me to be in local government behind the scenes, and also from behind the scenes seeing what Newsom was doing and understanding that from a local level, in many regards, we were already living in a socialist state because the local governing body could not make any decisions without the state, right? Like the state had so commandeered all of the
centralized power.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes. All of the, we couldn't, you would think we would be able to make decisions for our local community, right? With property and financial decisions and all sorts of other things. I won't go into all the details, but people would say to me, Simone, why can't you vote this on this? And I said, because the state won't let us. And if because it's against the state has said we cannot move in this direction. It's out of our hands. And time again, I have so wanted the local body to stand up against Newsom's policies and say, no, we will not do this. We stand against you, And time again, I've been told that Newsom will take away the city charter. That's not what it's called, but it's the rights to the city. Essentially, you will no longer be a city. He will come after you. He will find you. He will bankrupt the city if you stand against him. And so that's what we're looking at. So from behind the scenes to see all of these socialist policies, and it's through, again, climate change, the housing crisis, it's a housing crisis. And it's like Newsom and his cronies created the housing crisis, right? It's like they create the problem. And that is actually basically like Luciferian doctrine is that you bring order to the chaos, but you create the chaos so that you can be the hero who brings the order.
And
so
you lose
that's
track
exactly
of 20 billion.
And you lose track of 20 billion, and then you pass a law a week ago, like Newsom did, and say that you cannot audit the spending on the homeless. We just poof, it's gone. We don't know where it is. And there is a law that you cannot audit the spending that I've spent on the homeless. So he's basically passing laws that you cannot look at what he's doing. So this is totalitarian. Like you can't even you can't not see it. The people I get, this is where I'm like, I have to, ask, like, pray, right? Sometimes I get so angry with people who are aligned with that. Like they're, in so many ways, these are the people. This is the evil that's come out of the assassination attempt is also exposing people, because these are the same people who are like, oh, I wish this shooter wouldn't have missed. Better luck next time. Why didn't he take more lessons? And coming out and essentially being upset publicly, teachers, city officials, whatever, saying that they wish that the shooter would have hit Trump, and that again, they're exposing themselves for their evil. And so this is all the same people, right? And it's all the same spirit.
Yeah, they're possessed.
Yes, and I also tie it back to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the religious spirit of the day, when Jesus came and spoke the truth and took on the local leaders, the local and state and national leaders, being Rome, took on the leaders, called them out for what they were doing, spoke truth, woke people up, and then was crucified for it. That is the same spirit. It's the religious spirit. Yes. That's the spirit that says, oh, how dare you not wear a mask? Like, this is the rule. This is the legal rule. How dare you? Because I want to breathe. Because it's my God-given right to breathe, and I don't have to put something on. My rights as an American, forget all the other countries, just say my rights as an American don't end where yours begin. It's just, and it was all about like, you're offending me, because there were all these rules that somehow you can't offend someone. You're crossing a boundary, or you're in my safe space, or whatever. And that is exactly what it is the religious spirit of the Pharisees embodied in the progressive left and manifesting itself through evil and wanting to kill, assassinate. Trump is not my savior. Jesus is my savior. But assassinating the person who is telling the truth and exposing the truth.
Well, first of all, I can't offend you. You can be offended by me.
Right.
I can't offend you.
That's good.
Second of all, in regards to the Christianity, if you're studying Bible and you're like, yeah, Jesus is going to save me, everything's great. But then you read Matthew 24. Mm-hmm. So this is what is going to happen to me if I convert, if I start believing in Jesus Christ.
Right.
That's horrendous.
Yeah.
Matthew 24 is horrifying. Mm-hmm. And then when you read the Revelations, that's horrifying as well. And then when this is how the book ends.
Yeah.
It's not the happy ending. Mm-hmm. So if the pendulum swings right now in both ways, and if we're getting towards something better than we're used to in the last 4 years, it means the revelations do not come now. Mm-hmm. But if we're not, if something bad happens in November. Mm-hmm. That's definitely revelation.
Yeah, I definitely think that. I definitely think November is. I think November is the tipping point, and we're like almost to the precipice, and it's the tipping point of where this country is going to go, and that's why we made the film. We are calling for people inside the church in particular, because we are members of the body of Christ, and we've become very comfortable. We've used scripture as a reason to not become political or not get involved or whatever. We've believed what the mainstream media has told us, that we're ultra MAGA and we're Christian nationalists and all of these things. And again, I'll bring it back to righteousness and justice. It says, one of the scriptures says that righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. And so how can you not stand for righteousness? How can you not stand for justice? It doesn't mean you need to take up arms and, all of a sudden have like some sort of military coup. No, we need to wake people up. We need to get people to vote. We need to go speak at city council meetings. We need to go speak at school boards. We need to take action. We need to learn. We need to have conversations with our friends. We need to pray. We need to be in the Word. There's just so many. There's so many things that Christians can do. And people are like, how can I make a difference? Well, you can show this movie to your family and your friends. You can have a watch party in your home. You can go to our website. You can go stream the film through our website. You can beam it to your smart TV, and you can do what I did a couple of weeks ago, which is invite your local mayor, invite your city council members, invite your local pastors. We all sat in a home, 10 people, made popcorn, had dinner, and watched the film. And, and then we all had like an hour-long discussion afterwards about how we can make sure that our community stays safe, that we stand up, that who's running for the next election, how can we back them? All of these things. I mean, seems small. But I say, okay, this is how you take your country back. Well, you don't, when you go to eat an elephant, the saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you eat it one bite at a time, because it's just little bits, right? It's your neighborhood, it's your community. And my husband and I were going to Godspeak for 3 years. And it was a 45-minute drive away to a whole other community. And then over the last 6 months or so, we was just burning on our hearts that we need to be embedded in our local community where we are. Like, you go drive to the church that, you're like, oh, this is amazing. It feels so good. But it's like, God wants you to be in your local community, especially now, because if there was shaking like World War III, an attack on our country, and all of these things, the community that I make 45 minutes away is not going to do anything. It's the community down the street, 1 mile away, we're going to band together. Correct. We're going to lock arms. We're going to share water. We're going to have, all of these things. So, this is really what we need to do. And forget all the terminology of, Christian nationalists or MAGA or ultra MAGA or whatever any of that stuff is, that we are followers of Jesus. And what does the Word say? And what does God call us to do individually with our gifts, talents, and abilities?
Even if you're not a man of God, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ or in any other prophets or gods, if you just want to live safely with your family, there's only one party you can vote for. That's it. Because you have the track record. Yeah. The track record of the big cities like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. These are pit holes. Every weekend in Chicago, 70, 50, 40 people getting shot just in one city. Yeah. Every weekend. That's mind-boggling. For me as an European, it's like 70 people maybe a year is getting shot in Lithuania. Maybe. Mm-hmm. Every weekend. Right. Weekend after weekend after weekend, right, in one city.
And Illinois has the strictest gun policies in the whole nation. So it's just proof that it's not gun control that's the problem. It's a societal problem, right? It's a sin problem. We're not healthy in this country. We need to get back to being healthy. And we had a clip, an earlier cut of our film, which was how at a school board, the Muslim families, this was in Dearborn, Michigan, the Muslim families had gone to the school board speaking out and basically yelling at the school board about all of the books in the school that were promoting homosexuality and all the graphic books and all of that. And it was even the Muslims, you would think, okay, it's the Christian, but even the Muslims have come out and said, this is not okay. Right? I mean, many of the teachings of the the progressive left are against even, Muslim ideology, which I don't profess to be an expert at, but I know that, homosexuality is definitely not one of their principles. And so I just... And also that Chicago has been led by Democrats for years. I mean, you look, this is the thing, is you look at where states are thriving. Oftentimes there is a Republican governor. Where states are faltering, they have a Democratic governor. If you just look at that, on that principle alone.
But those are statistics. Statistics are racism.
Yeah. Well,
you can see the
right.
You can watch those numbers. That
everything's racist right now, because I will have to smack you down into the Marxist ideology. You're a racist. No matter what, like, that's their answer. At the end of the day, you're a racist. Or mass immigration or mass deportation is racist. That we're not accepting of immigrants to this country because we want mass deportation of illegals. But the reason why these people aren't filling out the paperwork is because they probably wouldn't be let in the country if they did it properly, because many of them, and it's right, it's not a racist thing to say that many of these people are criminals, because a lot of them are MS-13 gang members, and it's just being played out all throughout the country. All these people getting murdered, women getting raped, and it just burglaries that are happening in Southern California. There are like Chilean gangs that are going around burglarizing wealthy neighborhoods, and they're breaking into homes and robberies and all sorts of things. And it's like, I mean, it's just the cry of my heart that America wakes up. That is truly the cry of my heart. And I love some of the, like, for example, my buddy John Amachukwu, who's in the film, he's the book banning pastor is what they've coined him, right? So he goes around the country, taking on school boards. Shout out to John.
So basically, for the audience, he just takes the
book that's in the school,
and just reads it,
and it's pornography,
and gets arrested.
And they basically say, Mr. Amachukwu, pastor, you have to stop, and then he doesn't stop, and he's like, what's the problem? And they call security on him and whatever. But I love when the people in the community that are supposed to be towing the line with the Marxist ideology don't toe the line, and they stand up against it. And then it's like we have in the film how Larry Elder was called the black face of white supremacy. So it doesn't even matter what your skin color is. You just need to have a black voice, basically a Marxist voice that is going to, align with I'm oppressed. And Amachukwu says,
or you're not black enough.
Or you're not black enough. And Amachukwu, and he said to me the other day, because we were texting back and forth, he said, I got that from like a book, or it's a quote from someone else, but I'll just say what he says. We don't need the soft bigotry of low expectations. We don't need the soft bigotry of low expectations. So if you take a cultural group, right, whether it's Hispanic or Black or Asian or LGBTQ or whatever, and say, oh, well, we don't expect you to do as well because you're of this group.
Yes,
that is more racist. It is just as racist, right, to say, your expectation is only here because you're a person of color, right?
Yes.
And so, and it's really the American dream is that anybody can, with hard work and determination, anybody can prosper. And there are countless stories of people who have overcome adversity and lived the American dream in this country. And then you think of, in Chicago, say the real slums of Chicago, or where all these shootings are happening or whatever, the Democrat policies have kept these Black communities oppressed over the years. It's not that we've somehow, it's our racism that has kept them in these communities. It's literally policies that are fueling these communities. It's their policies that are fueling African American abortions at an exponential rate, right? Because there's a Planned Parenthood on, the saying goes, on every corner of a black neighborhood, right?
3% population to 40% of abortions in the U.S. That's madness.
So, you're talk about racism when you're killing off the next generation of a people group, right? And it's so funny when we were having this conversation, when we're talking about immigration, it didn't even occur to me when we were having this conversation about you coming in. It was like, it's so not even in my mind that I would hate an immigrant, that I would even think of your story blesses my heart. I'm so glad you were able to get in so easily, because I've heard of people who are not able to do the legal way easily. But my great grandparents immigrated here from Italy, and then I traced back the other side of my family that came over. I want to say it was as early as 1642 or something. It was bananas. I did it a couple years ago that I found that they came over from England. And I just this what makes us all united is freedom. This country, the opportunity that it holds and provides, and we are. I leave you with this. I don't know if we're sort of running out of time, but I wanted to say that there was this video that I saw this weekend. I think it was at the Trump rally. There was this black man talking to a white woman who was the reporter, and he was saying, "Oh no, MAGA Trump people are racist, whatever." And she's like, "Okay, well, here are the Trump supporters over here, and then here are the protesters over here, right?" So she walks him over to the Trump supporters, and she says, are you guys racist? And they're like, no, come on. They gave him a hug, and they loved on him, and asked him how he was doing. It was they poured love on him. You're, buddy, you're welcome here. We love you. And then, so he got this amazing reception in the Trump crowd. And then they walk across the street to the progressive leftist crowd. And they're like, F you Nazi bitch. And all these things. And he was it was terrible, right? It was terrible. It was so opposite of this group, right? And it was cut really comedically, because it was this sad song that they played at the end, and this slow motion of his looking over here, those are my people and these are mean people, and it was so funny, but it's so true. I mean,
how about Biden just abandoning this black girl at the rally?
I know. Or he could not remember the Secretary of Defense's name. He called him the black man. Yeah, he called him the black man. He was like, oh yeah, and the black man. And if you go to his earlier, back in I think the 80s and the 90s, back when he was young, he was so racist. He was so racist. What? You cannot take someone. You can't excuse my expression here, but polish a turd like that. I mean, that is so ingrained in him. But they tried to polish a turd and put him out there like he's some, and he used to stand against gay marriage as well. He did, vehemently.
Time flies.
And then all of a sudden, I mean, so.
Yeah, but he's old. Let's take New York Governor Katie Hochul that said, blacks don't even know what a computer is. Just shut up. If you don't have anything wise to say, just keep silent.
Yeah, there
was
a progressive leftist city council member when I was on city council, and very pro-Hispanic community and all these things. And again, pushing the Hispanics into an oppressed group, just constantly pushing them there, but thinking that she's doing them a favor, which she's not. And, pushing the expectations lower, soft bigotry of low expectations and everything. And she said something along the lines where we really need to notify the Hispanic community in a way, we can't just, because the way that they've been notifying the community who's not on the internet a lot, the older community or whatever, is by putting it on the back of the water bill. They've been writing information election. She's like, well, we really need like an audible way, some way that they can hear the information because, many of them cannot read or write.
She said that?
She said that from the dais, like in a meeting one night, that many of them can't read or write. And I've told several Hispanic people in our community that, and they're like, she said that. It was literally a week before like Joe Biden called the Hispanic community like breakfast burritos, which I can't remember the name, but she was like, they're as spicy as breakfast burritos or whatever. And it's like, just the stuff that comes out of their mouth is just, I mean, honestly, that's why the conservatives are so funny. The left writes their own jokes. I mean, come on. Like the memes that have come out of the whole Secret Service debacle. I mean, the one guy lost his life and the other two are struggling, but and Trump almost lost his life and it's really, really terrible. But like the kind of stuff that the director of Secret Service would say that we didn't put someone up there because the roof was sloped. And then the Secret Service or the shooters, the slopey roof.
Take a look at.
Oh, yeah. 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 Well, the day after that or the day after she said that, I walked out my front door to like check the temperature or something. And I looked across the street and there were my window cleaners and they cleaned the windows and they cleaned the solar panels on the roof. And I was so happy. I saw them and I'm like, you guys got more business because I love them and I wanted them. They cleaned mine a couple weeks ago and so now they're across the street and I'm like, I'm looking up there and I'm like, man, he is on a sloped roof, like cleaning the solar panels. And it's like, wow.
That's comedic.
Wow. But, you just can't, they just write. It's like, Kamala Harris continually saying that she wants to be unburdened by what has been. That's the joke going around. Like she says it all the time. Like, I want to be unburdened by what has been. And Trump is hilarious. I saw something last night again. It's an older clip when he was interviewed by Tucker, but he says to Tucker, she speaks in rhymes. And Tucker's like, what do you mean she speaks in rhymes? I know Tucker knows, but he just wanted to hear him say it. And he's like, the bus, I'm on the bus. And then I go on the bus. And then I been on the bus. And the bus that was, the bus has been. And and it was like, it was so like classic Trump because he's witty. Like he understands how hilarious what they're saying and they're doing is like.
But that's possibly your next president.
Who?
Kamala.
Oh, God.
There's a quote. So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. Basically, that's wrong.
Right. I know.
Brilliant.
I know. I remember that one.
Did you hear her explaining?
It's like a kindergarten teacher.
Yes.
She's like a kindergarten teacher. I don't know how she passed the bar. And do I think she's going to be so this is my prayer and this is what, I'm just praying the word and believing that they're going to fall into the net which they laid for America, that they're going to fall into their own net and they're going to get sunk down the pit. I have to believe, I have to fight. I'm working on local campaigns. I'm just signed up to work on more national campaigns to help elect, these help flip the election. And and this is part of that too, is just wait, so you're saying, oh, she could be your next president. Well, not on my watch is how I see it. Like not on my stinking watch. I mean, I'll do everything that I can to do obviously legally and rightfully. And, I would absolutely grieve. And then were we to lose the election, buckle up buttercups, because the buttercups, I say that's my expression is buckle up buttercups, because everybody's kind of a soft little, it's not going to happen to me. And then buckle up for persecution, because they're going to come after the Christians. They're going to come after everybody who stands. They already were in the last 2 years, very, very specifically. They were coming after obviously Trump and political opponents, and FBI was raiding homes of people who were protesting at abortion clinics, and just the people. They were going after the people who were doing things right, and just like we're talking about the crime in LA and that father that went to go to take on the child's attacker. They're going after the good people. They're not going, then they're letting the bad people go. And they will come after us. And it is so true. And it is so true that they're really after us, and Trump is just standing in the way. I think, that was a nice, cute little saying before the assassination attempt. And then you see him get a bullet in his ear, and he literally takes a bullet for us. And then the next rally gets up and is like cracking jokes. I mean, it was one of the funniest rallies I've ever heard on this past Saturday. Like, who does that? Like, I want to be a warrior like that. That's my kind of people that I want to stand with. I don't want to be standing with some guy who gets COVID, which is just basically a cold now, and just like goes in to the basement, or some people who speaks in rhymes or is condescending to America like a kindergarten teacher. And it has been said and documented by many different people that she ascended the ranks of her political career in a not so gracious way. I'm being kind.
She was 29.
She was, Montel Williams 60. And Willie Brown and all these people. And you even, I think, is it Judge Joe Brown that I saw last night? He was talking about her past and how she amazing. Ascended the ranks, in a sleazy way. And it's like, I can't really speak to any of that, but it's like, it's just, you see, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, and you're like, probably is a duck, So anyway,
I can only imagine her on the world stage negotiating with the Putin.
No, you know what is interesting about Putin, and I don't know if you heard this a couple of weeks ago, but he was speaking, and this video hasn't made the rounds very much, but he was speaking and said that I've heard that one of Trump's policies, or one of the policies that he wants to implement, is basically to end the war in Ukraine. And he said, I'm very much looking forward to speaking with him about that.
Did you hear that Trump already spoke to Zelensky?
Yes. Yeah, and then they made memes out of that too, which was pretty hilarious.
Like he was calling Joe Biden 46 times. Yeah, I'm still getting my money, right?
Right. Desperate texting of like, come on, man, like don't forget me. I think his wife is driving around in a new Bugatti. Oh yeah, and whatever. It is. If people cannot see the corruption that's been happening, how the billions and billions of dollars have gone to Ukraine, but yet the border's open, and crime and our cities are dilapidated, and they didn't put it towards our infrastructure and the American people. It's just, if you can't see it, like, there are just going to be some people who wake up and some people who don't.
I've got two friends actually from Lithuania. They were donating to the Ukraine for the drone and etc. Right when it started, I would say a year after, even a year after. So I had a conversation with them a few days ago, and they were saying, like, is Trump getting elected? I'm asking, like, why? Because I'm sick of it. Because for 2 years, nothing has changed in Ukraine, right? So the Russians took some cities, and that's it. For 2 years, they're just shooting each other, and people are dying.
Right.
And we have a few friends, new friends here in the U.S. that were from the Ukraine, and they're pro-Ukraine. But the things that they're telling us, like, it's so corrupt. 100 million, 50 million, 15 million, 10 million stolen by the government. And at the same time, the warriors, their friends that are in the war in the Ukraine right now, they don't have the ammunition, they don't have the vest, they don't have this and that. That's mind-boggling. Yeah. Almost 200 billion were sent to the Ukraine. Where are all the money?
Right.
You could win a war with the 200 billion.
Yeah.
So I've got this last question that is always the same in my podcast. So let's have two assumptions with you. Assumption number one is the President of the United States is the most powerful human being on the planet Earth. Not the current one, But the position of the president of the US is the most powerful human being on planet Earth. Assumption number 2 is you become one. You become the president of the US. Once you do so, you've got this Secret Service. They come at you and say, congratulations, Mrs. President, we love you. We're on your side. We as a Secret Service, we have all the answers in the world, right? You can ask us whatever you want, and we will give you the honest answer. We know the truth. What would be your first question?
I just want to say my question would be, Mike, and I want to preface this answer by, I think I know enough. And I think I know, if you go by the word, I think I know enough. Like, I know, I've seen the writing on the wall. And so I want to ask them this: do you know Jesus?
Really?
Yeah.
That's what would
That's what I would ask. That's what I would ask. Yeah. Yeah. Even things that I don't know, I can assume that that is the first answer that comes to my mind, honestly, is, do you know Jesus? And because I'll tell you why. I have a close relationship with the Lord, and I know that Holy Spirit lives in me and is guiding me. And so if I don't know something, I ask him, and I ask him to show me in the word, and I ask him to guide me to the answer. And so I just wouldn't need someone to just tell me anything that I don't know. I just would lean into the Lord. Does that make sense? And
how about the Epstein list?
I can pretty much guess who's on the Epstein list.
Would you expose it as a president? They give you the list.
Would I expose it?
Names. Yeah. Would you expose it?
Yeah,
Right away?
I would. But you know what? Some of these things too, you have these threats on people's lives are very real, right? And their families. And, I think that, and that's again why you'd asked me the question earlier, okay, like who really is behind sort of this running the world and everything? And it's just, I think we have to have a little bit of empathy for some of these people in power who are not, and I need to be preaching to the choir, but a little bit of empathy to understand the kind of pressure they're under, because the enemy is ruthless and will kill you, just like they killed Seth Rich for exposing. He had the drive that he gave to WikiLeaks that basically exposed, I believe it was all of Pizzagate and all of that. And he was murdered in DC on the street, like in broad daylight. And apparently, from what I understand, it was like MS-13 that was hired, like a division of MS-13 that was hired to kill him. By higher ups, in the government. And, I just think that, and I am also critical of Trump for not going after the deep state harder, but I think that you're walking for everything. Everybody's very bombastic. Oh, I would do this and I would do that and I would do, right? But there is wisdom. There is wisdom in leadership, right? There's wisdom if I were president of the United States, which I have zero ambitions for, potentially state or congressional seat down the road, I'm praying about. That might be what God has for me on the radar. That might be. But I can speak to the little bit of a leader that I was on my local city council, that I wanted to make the decisions to vote with wisdom, to always pray before I go into voting or I go into a city council meeting, to always use the word as a guide, and to ask the Lord, how do you want me to vote? Show me how you want me to vote, or show me what you want me to do. So again, I say that people are like, oh, I would do this, and this is what I would do, and all these things. And it's like, well, there's just got to be wisdom in walking some things out, And so you asked me about what I exposed the Epstein list. That would be something I would love to do, But I don't know. I haven't seen all of the documents, and I don't know. I haven't seen all of the threats, and I haven't seen all of the. There's a lot behind the scenes that we think that we know that we just don't have the fullness of, right?
That's correct.
So I don't want to pretend that I have all the answers, but I do think that, that is when I would most, if I were in that position, that's when I would most lean into the Lord. And then it says in Proverbs, there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. So having the most trusted people in my inner circle of like helping me make those decisions. Like, look, I don't have all of the facts on the Epstein list or knowing everything behind it. Can you please find those and bring them to me, and we can have a discussion about it or whatever. You also have to be very careful who is in your inner circle. I think that in Trump's first term, there were some people in his inner circle that weren't kosher and who didn't have his best interests in mind. And they were sort of like, oh, well, I need some, it's like Pence, I've heard some things about Pence. He was just, the whole time kind of not really, he was picked as the establishment guy to sort of favor the establishment or get the votes of the establishment people. You just have to be very careful in your personal life as well as your public life to know, to be wise about who's surrounding you.
So for the last, I want to say 2.5 hours, we were kind of bashing the US. So I would like to wrap it up with saying, me as a foreigner, right? So I love America for a few things. I love America for bravery. I was watching the movies, I was watching the reality shows, I was watching the YouTube channels, I was watching the American people, and you were always very brave, very bold to me. Just like, for instance, let's take MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's bold, right? That's America to me. America to me is very high sky. You can describe this, you can depict this if you haven't been to Europe and to the US. In Europe, it's kind of everything's pretty low. It feels like the clouds are just a little bit over your heads. Here in the US, you feel this. Everything is very high. The sun is over there. Those broad roads, the California, let's say Texas, Utah. When you go and see those places, you see the vastness. You see the broadness, the boldness, everything that comes with it. You see the nature. You see the people. Almost, I want to say 99 out of 100 people that I meet, these are amazing people. So we lived in Spain for 2 years, and for 2 years I felt like a tourist there. I've been living here almost 2 years now. I have never in my life felt like I'm a foreigner, like I don't belong here, like never. From the people on the streets that I meet, to the cashiers in the grocery stores, to the guests that I have on my podcast.
Wow.
You always do this thing that I feel that I'm welcomed here. This is what the US is all about. And the US is always about the freedom to say whatever you want, what you can say, what you want to say, freedom to travel, to speak up, to be bold once again, and to be brave. That's what America is about to me. That's why I love this country. That's why I chose this country. I went from Lithuania to Spain to the US, and I honestly believe that the US is the last beacon on the planet Earth when you can be who you are, who you want to be, you can strive for success, and you have this ladder that you can climb and earn money for you, for your family, and to be with God.
Right.
Because this country is super conservative, in my opinion. It's red. It's not blue. It's red, and it's a super godly country.
Yeah,
but because of a few cities and the narrative you see in the movies in Hollywood and in the media, it feels like no, it's blue. It's secular. It's not. That's a lie. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is what it is for me. Simone, thank you for coming.
Did you have another question? Did you say you had another question?
No.
Or no? Oh,
No.
okay. I thought that was you were leading into a question.
No. So thank you for coming.
Okay.
I would recommend to anyone watching this podcast to watch the movie A Letter to the American Church.
Yeah.
It's not a movie with popcorn.
Yeah.
This is a disturbing movie, especially if you're not in this area and you kind of have no idea what it's like here in the US. When you watch the movie, you're like, Is that true? And that's a rabbit hole. If you try to dig, that's a rabbit hole. So watch the movie.
Can I tell them where to find it? Okay. So we released in February, and it's been going now for 6 months, 7 months. I mean, we are, we're moving into our 7th month, going in August since it's been released. We released on Epoch Times TV. So they have a streaming division, Epoch TV. We released it there. Then we put it on our website, so you can go stream it on our website. And we also are releasing on Daystar TV, which is going to be, it's a network, so it's going to be a little bit, you're going to have to look up when you can watch it. So that's, it's not on demand there. But we also have groups all over the country and even in internationally who have been signing up, mostly churches, but other organizations. We've had Republican groups, GOP PACs that have screened our film in groups to educate people on what's happening, the Marxist ideology that's behind everything that's happening right now, and how you in the church and elsewhere can stand up. So those screenings can you can do that through our website. Go to a screening license. Go into learning about a screening license, how you can obtain one for a large group. And then the link will be provided to you. A marketing kit will be provided to you, as well as adding the screening onto our website. There is a local screening here in Camarillo, in Ventura County, coming up on August 1st, and it is at Roxy Theater. That's also on our website. You can go to screenings to see the list of screenings, and you can purchase tickets there. It's at a legitimate, movie theater. It's going to be a theater release there, and that's in Camarillo on August 1st. So you can. There's lots of ways you can see it. Lots of things you can do. Utilize. There's DVDs available on our website, which I know a lot of people don't have DVDs players anymore, but I have to say there is a whole generation above 60 that are buying the DVDs like nobody's business, buying packs of them and handing them out to people to wake them up. That is what they're doing. You can also gift it through our streaming. When you stream through our website, you can click right below our little icon that says "Give as a gift," and you can send the film to someone.
Do that. So it's $10. Support the movie. Amazing movie.
Thank you so much.
But only an hour long.
60 minutes on the dot.
I wanted more. I wanted a TV show.
I want a sequel, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Let's pray.
Okay.
Something great happens in November, so this movie is going to be like a history.
Yeah.
That's going to be in history books. God bless you.
God bless you.
God, Jesus Christ bless you and all your family.
Thank you, Apollo. Appreciate it.